we're back. Welcome back to Drunk in the Library, where we talk about the strange, the unusual, and the downright stupid things you didn't think you need to know about. I'm Kaila Flickinger. Brooke Flickinger.
That's our stage name.
Our stage name is very clearly Crook.
I know, we've talked about this, but sometimes you just gotta combine both of us. I mean, we're like one person anyway, so.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so for everyone who doesn't know, we're recording remotely this week, so it might sound a little strange. Don't fault us for it, but, you know, social distancing shit, so we're doing our part, bitches.
Amen.
Alrighty, what do we got in terms of questions, comments, concerns about episode 2 last week about King Tut and sleep paralysis?
All right, so in the King Tut segment, we had questioned if Thebes was an Egyptian city or a Greek city.
Mm-hmm.
It is an Egyptian city, but the Egyptians called it Waset, and it is situated along the Nile. So the Greeks called it Thebes, the Egyptians called it Waset. It's the same place.
Okay.
And we had also questioned how scientists had figured out how Tut had epilepsy.
Okay.
They don't know for certain that he did, but they think he likely had a heritable form of temporal lobe epilepsy.
Cool. You know what else I was actually thinking about too when we had talked about this? Because I remember you mentioning that they like put the organs and stuff in jars.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they found anything like in his tomb, like if they found his organs and stuff. But I don't know. I started thinking about it and then didn't look it up. I don't know why, but
fair.
You know. I could go like for days talking about that stuff because it's fascinating to me. But anyway, moving on. What are you drinking?
Oh, I am drinking Angry Orchard today.
Just a plain one?
Because we're classy. Yeah.
Ah, yes. I am drinking just my usual tequila and blueberry lavender, I think the flavor is. Syrup with some seltzer in it. I put a lot of tequila in here today. I put like U-level like tequila in there.
Nice. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's Sunday. What else are you gonna do?
That's right.
So before we move into hot topics for the day, I want to just take a quick second and, like, from the bottom of our very hearts, just thank everybody who has taken the time to listen to our first couple of episodes, because I know I have been, and I know you have been. We've been talking about this a lot off. We're just blown away by the support that you guys have shown already.
Oh my God, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that because I wanted to do the same thing and say, like, I cannot believe how many people actually took time to listen to this because, like, we have been talking about this for months.
I know.
And, like, when New Year's came along, I was like, we're going to start this in the new year. We're actually going to do it. And then, like, months went by and we didn't get a chance to. And then we finally did. Like, this is the best thing that we could have done, honestly. Yeah. And, like, what other thing allows you to start drinking 2 hours before you actually have to do your job?
That's true. Yeah.
So.
Very true.
Like, who includes drinking as preparation to do your job?
I drank a full glass of water this morning because I was like, I have to drink really early today.
I did the same thing. I was like, gotta get hydrated. Ate like a full meal. I had like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like, gotta make sure I got some food in my stomach. You know, I prepped hardcore for this today. So.
Oh yeah.
I agree with you. I'm very thankful that, you know, people have actually listened to us. And I hope people continue to listen. And if you like us, like, make sure you tell your friends about us because that's what's going to get us further and get us to do more things. If you're not telling anybody, then we're not going anywhere.
Right.
So tell everybody. Let everyone know that you like us. And if you don't like us, don't tell anybody. Cause I don't want to hear it.
Just keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself. No one wants to hear your negativity, okay?
All right, Brookie, what do you got for me?
All right. So the topic that I picked this week, I actually eventually became kind of disappointed in.
Oh, no.
Because I thought there was going to be more information on it. And there's actually, like, nothing. And it's something that everybody's heard of, but there's no information on it. So I picked doppelgangers.
Ooh.
Yeah. You say ooh, but there's like, no information here. So I don't know what made me think of this, but I thought of it. And I was like, you know what? That sounds interesting. Let me go for it. And then I started doing research, and I'm like, there's nothing here. Like, no one has any weird stories. Like, so my sources are from Wikipedia and then a website called ancientorigins.net. And, excuse me. So
Drinking too early.
Drinking too early. Yeah, my body's like, what the hell are you doing? So doppelganger is a German word that means double goer. And it basically refers to a non-biologically related look-alike or double of a living person, sometimes portrayed as a ghostly or paranormal phenomenon, and usually seen as a harbinger of bad luck. That's from Wikipedia.
Okay.
The version that I've heard was that, like, if you see your doppelganger, you're probably gonna die. Like, that's like the biggest thing. But it actually, so if you see your own doppelganger, that supposedly foretells of your death. If a relative or a friend sees your doppelganger, it just means that you're probably gonna get really sick.
Oh
So,
no.
yeah. So they also call them evil twins, or nowadays we call them twin strangers, and there is a whole website dedicated to twin strangers.
I have had the idea for that website for like years.
Well, somebody
Damn
beat
it,
you
somebody
to
beat
it.
me to it.
Somebody beat you to it. So yeah, I refuse to go on there though, because I don't want to know if there's anybody that looks like me.
I do. I want to become their best friend.
No, you have me. No, I don't want to know, because that person, like, if there's a concept of evil twins, I have a feeling I'm the evil twin.
The evil twin.
I don't want to find my good twin. I don't want to know.
The other one's your good twin.
Yeah, people are gonna
and
like
God
her.
forbid if they're more evil than you, we're in for trouble.
We are in for trouble, but I know people will like her better than me, and I don't want that. So there's only room for one of us around here, and it's me. So I don't want to go on that website. Although people have said to me, I've had numerous people come to me and be like, "Oh, is your name Katie or whatever?" They'll pick something, and I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, I know somebody who looks exactly like you." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry. That's unfortunate, but you know." So I think I do have a doppelganger out there. She wanders around here, but we don't.
You're not interested.
I'm not interested. Stay the fuck away from me. So they claim that there are different forms of doppelgangers. Like each, not religion, but each like culture kind of has its own version of like that myth. The earliest traces of it can be found in Zoroastrianism.
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce that word. But that was like an early form of like religion. Like I think it was like an Islamic religion. And they kind of came up with the concept of like the good and the evil twins. So there were in their story that they have, there were twins called Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. They were co-eternal representatives of good and evil. And it seems like most stories that involve doppelgangers kind of had that same concept. Like there's one that's good, and then the evil one might come along and like try to persuade you to do things like that are less than savory.
Okay. Wait, quick interjection. As a child, did you watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
Of course.
Remember when she has the evil twin that tries to push her or Harvey into a volcano?
Yes.
That's where all of my information of doppelgangers comes from.
All my information of doppelgangers, I mean, some of it comes from there, but it also comes from the Vampire Diaries when there were 8,000 fucking doppelgangers.
Oh, right. Yeah, when Elena was like 18 different people.
Yeah, when she was like Catherine and then Amara or whatever the fuck her name was, and there was so many other ones, and you just like stop caring after a while because you're like, enough, you don't have that many, you liar. So Egypt also had its own version, which was called a Ka, and that was supposedly like a spirit double, which had like the same memories as you. It could feel the same things as you, and there was a myth called the Greek Princess in which it was mentioned, and it talks about like I guess I'm going to use the word ransacking, but I don't know if I want to use that word, of Troy, and how there was a Ka of Helen of Troy that was used to mislead Paris to help stop the war. So they have that belief. The Norse have their own, known as a Vardiger. And theirs isn't like sinister or anything. It mostly just talks about how there are people who look like you, do the same things as you, but they'll show up to a location before you do that and do all the things that you would have done there. Which is weird. It's like
that gives me like the shivers.
It's like a time traveler. It's like you from the future is already there doing those things. People see you doing them, and then you show up and do the same things, and they're like, "Hey."
I wonder if that's where like deja vu comes from.
I mean, I wonder if it does. That's actually a really interesting concept. It would make a lot of sense but like I don't know if the person who is a subject of that has any sort of like knowledge of it. Like if they feel like they've done that thing before.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. The most common one that we know of is the concept of changelings.
Okay.
Changelings are basically doppelgangers. And for people who don't know, changelings are born of like Scottish origin. And there were these fairy-like creatures called trows that would basically have these babies and would replace normal babies with these things called changelings. And then these women would be like, wait a second, that's not my child. And they would freak out over it. And then I don't know really what would happen to those children after that. I feel like they just tried to get rid of them because they were like convinced that wasn't their child.
I'm actually like super interested in changelings. I think like the lore behind them is super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them did like leave their babies out to like in the wilderness to die. Some of them did unfortunately like kill them. A lot of the myths around changelings are born from either like babies who got sick and the mothers like couldn't deal with it or the family couldn't deal with it, or like really, really intense and severe cases of postpartum depression.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that I read too is that they were like pregnant women were like closely guarded because of the whole myth of changelings.
Yeah.
So like they wanted to make sure that like no weird fairies were coming and switching out your babies after you had them. So I thought that was really interesting. Native Americans have one as well. Same kind of thing. They talk about twins. So there's a child of the sun and a child of the water. That's from the Hopi legends or Hopi.
Okay.
I don't know. But this is from, I believe, ancientorigins.net. They said they believe in a duality between the upper world and the underworld. That whatever is happening here in the upper world, the opposite is happening in the underworld. So nowadays, as I said, people like talk about more like twin strangers versus like a doppelganger, but we might still use that term as like a slang to like refer to somebody who looks similar to another person. There obviously is no like scientific evidence to support that that's a real thing.
Sure.
And people like who believe that, scientists have really done their research and believe that it's really kind of comes from mental illness, or that like it's a vision or a hallucination that like they think like these people think that this stuff is going on, but really there's something mentally that's going on that's affecting them, that's causing them to believe that they've seen their self somewhere. And then one of the most famous cases of this, which I've actually heard of and I have forgotten about, but Abraham Lincoln claims to have seen his own doppelganger before he died.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. So he was elected in 1860. He arrived home after, I don't know where he was, but he arrived home and looked in his mirror and said that he saw himself reflected double. So he like saw himself and then himself next to himself. But he said that it's weird.
I hate that.
I know, it's so freaky. So the quote says that nearly at full length, my face had two separate and distinct images. One was a little bit paler, say 5 shades, than the other. Weird.
That's really weird.
So his wife heard this story and was like, that's a whole lot of nope that I don't really want to deal with.
Same.
So she was really concerned about it. And she thought it was like a bad omen. Well, we all know what happened to Lincoln.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's legit, but I'm not saying
if you see yourself run.
Oh yeah, it said to don't associate with yourself, which is what I'm doing. I don't care for my doppelgangers. So, but yeah, that's that's really all I have about that. As I said, there's really not a lot of information, which is kind of surprising because I feel like over the years I've heard like so many weird things about it. But yet there's
Nothing
nothing.
really,
Yeah.
pertaining to it on the web.
Yeah. But it's a weird concept.
It definitely is a weird concept. It's one that I don't like I said, like if I could find I think I would like to find my twin stranger just because I think it'd be cool. But if it were like my evil twin, because I would be the good twin, I'm not interested. Like I don't want to know the bad things that I am capable of. I don't want any mysterious juju following me around. I just want to meet my twin stranger.
I just want to like browse a catalog.
Yeah, that's exactly. So I've literally, like I said, like I've had this idea for this website literally since I was a kid. And in my head, that's exactly what it was. You could enter your facial features and it would kind of like narrow it down until you're left with, 10 people who might look just like you. Click the one that matches best.
I think the Twin Strangers website, like you submit a picture of yourself and then other people can like look, like I think you can like kind of look through like a catalog of people and be like, hey, I have a friend that looks like that, or that looks like me. So I think that they do kind of have that, but that was as of like the last time that I looked at that website, which was like a very long time ago.
I'm gonna be looking at it later.
It's just so weird. You also have to pay to do it.
Oh man,
which I think is kind of BS.
Like, maybe we can get them to sponsor us though.
If they sponsor us, I'll do it.
Hey, twin strangers, come on out. Let it be our sponsor.
Come show me my good self. Anyway, what do you have for me?
Ooh, I pulled out the big guns today. I hope you're excited for this.
I'm very excited because mine was very uneventful.
Get through all of my notes here. All right, Brookie. What do you know about Atlantis?
Girl. Atlantis.
We don't talk about Atlantis now.
I'm very excited for this because I fucking love Atlantis. And I love the whole concept of it. I love that King Triton lives there. And he has so many daughters.
He's got so many daughters. Why can't they all sing so well? So unfair.
I thought they all could.
Yeah, they can. I can't. It's not fair.
I thought you said, why couldn't they all? I'm like, they can. What are you talking about?
They can all sing so well. So unfair.
Yeah.
All right.
Share the wealth.
We're going to take a slightly more historical approach today versus a fantastical or a mythological approach.
So we're going to be going over the building of Atlantis in the Bahamas.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about the resorts.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Don't tell me about the mermaids. Tell me about
here.
Just the tourist
couples on honeymoons.
Yes, exactly what I wanted to hear about today. All right, go ahead.
So what do you know about like the origin of Atlantis?
I don't. I kind of know that I think it was mentioned in Plato's works, I think.
Correct. Okay. Yes. So, the first mention of it is in Plato's work. It's in his, I think it's called Dialogues, through a character called Critias, who basically has had this story of a utopian society passed down through his father and then his father before him and his father before him. Basically, through Critias, we find out that it is like this highly advanced society protected by Poseidon. It got its name from the Greek god Atlas. And it's like this super technologically and politically advanced society. But the problem is that as their society advances, their ethics decline.
So like America.
Yeah. I didn't know how close to home I was going to be hitting. So eventually, by divine punishment, the city island, was sunk. Okay. So again, we kind of learn all of this through Critias. So it became such like a ingrained part of Greek culture that people just kind of stopped they just didn't know anymore if it was real or not. There
That's
came
fair.
a point where like everybody had heard it so frequently they were no longer sure if Plato had made it up as a metaphor for Greek society or if it had been an actual place that he had heard about from his father's father's fathers.
I feel like that's a lot of things though in like Greek culture. Like they talk about so many things that over time it's like, first of all, like whatever it was in the beginning is never what it is at the end. It's like a historic game of telephone, but it's also like, was that legitimate or like not?
Who knows?
Like how much of that was true?
Yeah,
so
nobody really knows. So after that, it largely kind of faded from culture. Everybody just kind of forgot about Atlantis until in 1627, the philosopher Francis Bacon published a novel called The New Atlantis.
Okay.
Which was basically a utopian novel depicting a like super advanced society on a fictional oceanic island.
Okay.
And at that point, like things, it started to get some publicity again. Then in 1882, a U.S. congressman named Ignatius Donnelly, which like we should bring that name back to fashion. Ignatius? That's a great name.
I mean, it's pretty
nickname
like
Iggy.
It sounds pretty like epic.
It does, yeah.
Like it's not like your average like I guess I'm just gonna go like see Ignatius today.
Yeah.
It's like that's like a battle cry, like Ignatius.
Yeah, that's a good name. And then Iggy is a great nickname.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway, I digress. He wrote an essay called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, which it took like a more historical approach at Atlantis and tried to like historically locate it, basically.
Okay.
So according like in Plato's writings, it was thought to be situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is today we put it around the Strait of Gibraltar.
Okay.
Out towards like the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So he thinks that immigrants from Atlantis populated much of the ancient world. So basically Atlanteans moved off of Atlantis and populated Europe, Africa, and I thought this was interesting, the Americas. Because I feel like when you're talking about specifically ancient Caucasian history, the Americas get forgotten a lot because like it wasn't a Caucasian nation.
Yeah,
until, like 400 years ago.
We don't really have anything like cool.
Well, we do, but we don't talk about it because of the filters that our history books use.
Yeah, I guess so. I just feel like Europe and stuff has so much more cool stuff than like we've ever had. And like we don't have a place called the Pillars of Hercules. That sounds fucking badass.
Yeah. I mean, we've got the Incans, the Mayans. I mean,
that's like, was that South America?
Yeah. Well, like Mexico-ish.
Still, that's not like the United States. Like we don't really have a lot of cool things.
Yeah, we're a lot younger, so there aren't as many like natural, like, or I guess not even natural, like man-made phenomena.
Yeah.
So his theories became popular around the turn of the century. So heading into like 1900, people were like, "Yeah, this seems legit. I bet this is where we came from." So moving more into like some theories about just about Atlantis in general. Is it real? What happened to it? Where can we find it? So some people think that Atlantis was a mid-Atlantic continent that sunk into the ocean suddenly. But a lot of modern oceanography and the study of tectonic plates have ruled this out pretty much completely.
Okay.
Some people think that the Bermuda Triangle ate it.
I don't think that that's how the Bermuda Triangle really works. But I'll save that for another episode.
In the 1970s, an author of a bunch of paranormal phenomena books named Charles Berlitz said that Atlantis was a continent off the Bahamas and that it fell victim to the phenomenon of the Bermuda Triangle. Supporters do point out that there's some suspicious evidence of potentially man-made walls and streets off the coast of Bimini.
I have heard that. I think I've seen pictures of that. it is pretty cool, but I think they
Yeah.
also debunked that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, evidence has been proven that these are just like naturally made, I guess like stone erosions and stuff like that. Um, there is this one is potentially the most interesting to me. A super interesting theory that Atlantis was Antarctica.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a far cry from
Oh, it is. All
the
of these are far
tropics.
cries. Yeah. So this one is based on a 1958 book titled Earth's Shifting Crust by Charles Hapgood. And what's interesting about this book is the foreword is by Albert Einstein. So like back in the day, it was pretty solidly credible.
Yeah, good old Al Einstein. So
yeah. According to this book, the Earth's crust shifted, which we do know is true. The Earth's crust does shift because of tectonic plates. And basically, the continent that was formerly known as Atlantis sunk to where Antarctica is, and the temperatures dropped at an alarming rate. People could no longer survive that climate, and Atlantis was buried under lots of ice.
It's a hard theory to disprove because nobody's out there looking for it. So
yeah, they do think that this one has been largely disproved by tectonic plates.
Yeah,
because of we can watch how the Earth shifts, and it doesn't seem to have shifted in that manner. But it is definitely an interesting theory.
Well, you have to look at it too. Is that we know nothing about our oceans. We know 1% of things about about just the ocean in general. So who knows where that actually might have been. We can say okay, according to the plates and tectonics, it probably isn't Antarctica, but you can't completely rule it out.
Yeah,
because there's always
yeah.
those weird incidents where something happens that we just don't know about, and then all of a sudden you find a lost city in the ice. So
how exciting would that be?
That would be amazing. But
so
once again,
cool.
They're not. As far as I know, unless there's some secret society looking, but I don't think there's anybody out there looking. The Arctic waters fascinate me beyond belief because I just we don't talk about what's in there.
It's true.
Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, whatever. Let's look at the Arctic Ocean. Let's look at the Southern Ocean. I want to see what's in there. Tell me what's at the bottom of those seas.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
So there's another theory that it was just a mythical retelling of the flooding of the Black Sea. So basically, this one states that Atlantis was a fictionalized retelling, essentially, of an actual historical event. In around the year 5600 BC, the Mediterranean Sea flooded, and therefore, subsequently, the Black Sea flooded, which is actually how the Black Sea became so highly salinated.
That's cool.
So inhabitants of the area had to flee, and they spread tales of this flooding, and then therefore inspired Plato's tale.
Okay. I know nothing, so I have no scientific opinion on this whatsoever. But if I have to formulate any sort of opinion, I do think that in some capacity it probably was real. I don't it's not unheard of for a civilized, or not a civilized, but an advanced civilization to collapse in on itself. And with the way that the Earth is, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that sunk. Once again, we know nothing about our ocean, so it could be out there somewhere. It just might not be in the location that we're thinking. It's just the most unusual part about it is that it's really only mentioned once.
Right.
So who knows if it was a legitimate thing or not? And also where did Plato get his information from? Why is he the only one that's ever mentioned it?
Yeah. So there's I have two more brief theories to go over. The next one is that Atlantis was the home of and I don't know if I'm saying this right, the Minoan civilization.
Yes, that is correct.
From about 2500 to 1600 BC. So the Minoan people, which were named for King Minos, lived on modern day Santorini, which was then called Crete and Thera. we know that they were pretty well advanced. They did have paved roads, they had enormous palaces, and they were thought to be the first Europeans to use a written language, which is pretty interesting. Historians think that they were wiped out through like a series of like cataclysmic events. It started with a big earthquake that triggered a massive volcano, which led to giant tsunamis, which didn't kill all of the people. It just left them open for Greek invaders, which is eventually how they demised. I think that's a pretty intriguing theory, that Atlantis didn't sink, it was just destroyed.
I mean, that could happen too. The Minoans are actually really interesting, like just their culture in general. I learned about that when I was taking that archaeology class. And they like, because it was like the Minoans, and then there was like another culture that was kind of like simultaneous with them. So it was like you were kind of either like in one camp or the other. But they were really interesting. And once again, wouldn't be unheard of if that was something that happened, because earthquakes were so common around that time, as well as like other cataclysmic events. Like they didn't have the preparation that we have now for it. Not that you can prepare for an earthquake, but like for like tsunamis and things, like they didn't know when that was coming. When a storm came in that moment, you were probably going to get annihilated by it. Like, there was no, hey, John said that there was a storm coming in 3 days.
No, yeah. I mean, like, I think that's a pretty likely theory. And then the last one, which I think if I'm being honest, it's probably the one that I subscribe to. It's that Plato invented the whole thing. I mean, I'm looking at the evidence that's been presented to me, and I kind of feel like maybe he just wrote it as a metaphor and then people blew it way out of proportion.
I think I'm 50-50, to be honest. Because I do think that, as I said, it's weird that only one person has ever mentioned it, and it was him. And for all we know, he could have just been like, well, there's this going on. And everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe that that's happening. Like,
right.
But then, like, on the other end of it, like, I do think that in some capacity, there probably was a civilization out there that sunk for some reason.
Oh, I'm sure there was.
Yeah, that, like, as I said, it might not have been, like, Minoan or Greek or, whatever. It might have been something completely different that we would have never even heard of, because there's no records on it at all whatsoever. There's probably multiple civilizations that's happened to. So,
oh, yeah. I mean, like, thousands of civilizations have been lost.
Yeah. So, like, and some of them have been found again. So, like, for all we know, a couple of years from now, we could find it. And it might not be like the Atlantis that we like conventionally think of, but it could be something similar to that. So, as I said, I'm kind of 50-50 on that. Like, with ancient history, it's really hard because there isn't a lot of records, and the records that you do have, it's just like one dude writing like what was happening at the time, or what, like, his perspective on what was happening at the time. So everything is a little bit biased and skewed, because it's like, yeah, this was a really big event, when really, like, nothing really happened. He just kind of made it up. So, everything could be completely different than what we know it to be at this point. So, but I love the idea of Atlantis. I hope it exists, and I hope that we find it.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be pretty exciting.
I mean, I love, like, lost cities and ancient shit like that. I'm all for it.
All right, that's all I got for Atlantis on you today.
Well, that was pretty cool. So, glad that we took that dive into that, because I think about Atlantis probably more often than I should. And I wish that there was, like, more documentaries and stuff, like, talking about, like, what the thoughts were and stuff on it. Like, there's so many historical, like, shows and documentaries and things just out there. And, like, there's really not much on Atlantis. So.
Well, from, like, what I gathered in my research, the reason that there isn't a ton more, like, docs on it or anything like that is because in the scientific and historical community, it's largely accepted as non-existent.
I guess that's fair. But they won't know until they keep searching. So just search forever.
You hear that, scientists?
Yeah. Get it together, all right? Like, I need to know.
Keep looking.
You have one job, to look for Atlantis. It's like science part A. Like, that's the first thing you learn. Atlantis.
Yeah.
Alrighty. What are you got anything that you're reading?
I have moved on to the second book of the Stormlight Archive, but I didn't get very far because I've been feeling very podcasty lately.
That's fair.
So, I'm like 20 minutes into that.
Okay. What
really
do you,
very far.
podcasty, what are you listening to anything good?
I'm listening to Box of Oddities.
Ah.
Which we discovered accidentally when we were 5 minutes from their house.
Yes.
What about you? What are you reading? Consuming?
So I'm reading that book that we picked up, or I picked up when we last went to the bookstore months ago. It is, I actually have it in front of me because I wasn't going to remember the author and everything. It's called Mythology's Fiercest Females, Warriors, Witches, and Women, and it's by Kate Hodges. I read like a couple different little, there's not like chapters in it. It like just like picks like a figure and then talks about that figure for like 2 pages and then moves on to the next one. But it is categorized, like the first like section is witches. So it talks about like witches in mythology, in literature, and how they were like perceived, like why they were perceived as witches. Okay. And why they were perceived like negatively, and why we shouldn't perceive these people negatively, because they like, this was written from the perspective of like either a man or somebody who didn't believe in the same things that they did, so then they were calling them something like that. So it's really interesting. The first person that was in there was Hecate. So,
oh, nice.
I know, I was very excited. But there was like a couple people that like I didn't really know much about, and then the more that I read, I was like, oh, this is really cool. So I'm glad that I started reading that again. I think, as I said, it's like one of those things where it's not like a quick read. You just kind of like read it here and there. It's a good like coffee table book. Mm-hmm. Like it's not one that you like sit down and read for hours at a time. So but it is entertainment nonetheless. So yeah, that's what I have. So
cool.
Alrighty, so that's all we have for this week, but we already said thank you to you guys, and we're going to say it again. Also, if you are interested, we do have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram, we have a Twitter, we have an email address. All of that stuff can be found like mostly on our Facebook page. That's where we're most active. Yeah. But you can find links to everything else on there. We're just drunk in the library, like on Insta, drunk in the library on Facebook. I think if you search us Drunk in the Library, you'll find us on Twitter. I know our Twitter handle is really weird.
Yeah, I think they automatically like populated that. I didn't choose that when I made it. Okay. But I'm sure if you just look for Drunk in the Library on Twitter, you'll be able to find us. Honestly, neither of us are like big Twitter heads. Yeah. So we don't like update Twitter a ton.
Yeah, it's mostly just like Facebook and Instagram for now. Maybe like eventually we'll use it more. But also, like, as I said, we have an email address at drunkinthelibrary at Gmail. So if you have any questions or like anything, topic ideas, anything that you want to say, anything that you want to ask us, like we have that email address for that. And then most importantly, as I said, like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, please give us ratings. If you have constructive criticism, we're still new at this. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're both just really excited to be doing this.
Yeah. And I also want to like send like a special shout out to my my Murderino group on Facebook, because those girls came through and subscribed to this podcast. They gave me the constructive criticism that like I wanted. They were super nice about it and also super freaking supportive. And that community is just like unfucking real. Aww. So I love them, and I just want to say thank you to them, especially for doing that for me. I also want to thank our friend Egan for listening, because he gave us a very detailed description as to what he liked, what he didn't like, what we could fix, all that fun stuff. So I appreciate that as well.
And we will be back next week with the first week of Medieval May. All May, we are coming at you with medieval topics. Next week, should we tell them, Brookie? What do you think? Should we tell them?
Well, I mean,
you'll find out eventually.
No. Give them a little taste.
All right, so
next little smidgen.
Next week, we're starting off Medieval May with medieval weaponry, which I think we're both super psyched about.
Weaponry and torture devices.
Yeah. I mean, same thing, really.
I mean, yeah, but I just want to clarify that. I mean, I had to clarify that with you when we talked about this, so I want to clarify it with everybody else. torture devices too, because that is a form of a weapon, but I just want that to be included in there. That way no one's like, hey, that's not a direct weapon, that's a torture device. Like, shut up, I know, and I explained that to you. All right? So.
All right,
guys. Thank you for everything, and we will see you next week.
Stay weird and stay drunk.
And learn something new anytime that you get drunk, because it's so much fun. Bye.